In this video, I will be covering the third tier of the Rogue-Like Iceberg. Throughout this video, as I tell you about each game on this tier of the iceberg, you will be watching me draw an illustration that relates to each of the games at this tier, alongside some other visual aids. I wanted to point this out up front since this is different from my previous two videos for this iceberg. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. Imagine, if you will, Avatar: The Last Airbender merged with Harry Potter. Except remove the plot holes and controversial authorship of Harry Potter, throw in an action roguelike, and Wizard of Legend is born. Despite not having played the game, but owning it in my never-ending backlog of games, anime, and books I have still yet to breathe on, I have watched a good deal of gameplay back in 2018 when the game was released, and I think that it is an often overlooked gem in the action roguelike genre, with me obviously falling into the party that's been sleeping on this game's magic. Sure, it wasn't the next Isaac, and Wizard of Legend doesn't have any legendary story or characters like Hades or Children of Morta, but it has a legendary elemental combat system. Unlike other action roguelikes that promote a balance of passive and offensive play to preserve as much health as possible, Wizard is the Sekiro or Bloodborne of the genre, prompting you to get aggressive. For one, there are 0 iframes, meaning no moment of peace to get a few magic missiles off while trying to reposition yourself, so you might as well commit to the combat. Most of the areas you fight in are tight spaces that do not lend themselves to you setting yourself up for the best defensive position, so in order to survive, you have to kill instead of kite. As I've been shown and told throughout researching this game, the combos of the abilities lend themselves to a faster paced playstyle as well, making you want to get your hands dirty in the ashes of the enemies you set ablaze. So, you want to be a gangster, but you don't want the risk of going in too deep to the point that a rival gang has littered you with bullet holes, and you just so happen to be a fan of video games, then you'll be happy to know that you can carry out your gangster legacy in the comfort of your own home through picking up Streets of Rogue, adding yet another game to that endless backlog that makes you debate joining that gang anyways, so you can be shot up, giving you the sweet release of death from your first world problems. Lucky for you, even if you weren't dreaming of that grimy, crime-riddled combat on backstreets, there are still characters in Streets of Rogue that you would enjoy. Depending on what character you play, will drastically change how you interact with the game. Most of your gameplay will be centered around solving problems through combat if you play as gangster, guerrilla, mobster, or jock. But if you want to rely on your wit and charisma to talk your way out of problems instead of Hulk smashing your way through, then try the bartender or comedian. No matter the character you pick, in each of the districts you come across, you will be given a handful of tasks that you have to complete before progressing to the next area. Your task could range from quenching your bloodlust through the subtle art of murder, or stealing the mayor's hat and impersonating the mayor to deliver a speech. Alongside these smaller tasks, depending on what character you choose, you are assigned a main quest which shall be your long-term task to take up the duration of the run. For instance, the gorilla's objective is to free all of the other gorillas. I love the fact that this game lets you play as Thug King Kong or Caesar from Planet of the Apes. Hands of Fate 1 and 2 takes on an extremely interesting take of the roguelike deck builder by mixing in some simple yet fun hack-and-slash action gameplay, allowing you to scratch your itch for strategy and stabbing skeletons silly with a spear or some other weapon of choice multiple times. Not only does it include those genres, but it also includes elements of a choose-your-own-adventure novel. As you build your deck, it will be composed of encounter cards and equipment. Encounters can be extremely helpful when they come from your hand, but they can be detrimental when they come from the mysterious card dealer across the table from you. Unfortunately for you, all of these encounter cards are laid face down on the table, so you do not know if you are choosing to move your piece onto a good or bad encounter until it is flipped over, letting the hand of fate have a say in your run's progression. Upon most of your encounters, you will be given multiple options as to how to interact with whatever challenge or opportunity is presented through a given encounter, giving you more options than Slay the Spires, interact, or go away options. When you tread upon a combat encounter, you will be given control over a champion. In Hands of Fate 2, Alongside dashing, slashing, and blocking, you can use artifacts as traps or temporary buffs to assist you in the combat encounter. As you build up your deck, which will be over the course of multiple runs, so too will the card dealer also adapt his cards as well, causing there to be an increase in difficulty as you play. Have you ever wanted Terraria to be a roguelike? Throw a futuristic skin on top of the beloved crafting game, and you are given your new true love, Dome Keeper. Dome Keeper is a roguelike all about managing a, dome. But not just any dome, a dome that shoots lasers to stop aliens from ransacking it. In order to maintain and upgrade this dome, you must mine down below it in between waves of oncoming aliens. In your mines, you will gather resources while trying to make the most efficient tunnels possible, utilizing your time wisely before the next wave attacks. Upgrades from those resources are put towards a skill tree, where you can upgrade your defenses, increase the dome's firepower, and build gadgets that will assist you in the mines. Gadgets can consist of tools such as drones that will haul your resources back up to the top for you, so you aren't wasting any of that precious mining time traveling back and forth between the dome and your cave's depths. Upon reaching a certain depth, you will find an artifact that will save you and your dome by warding off the aliens in a powerful blast, thus winning you the game. I was scraping to get information about this next game without coming across a 19-part guide as to how to build a character in this game, but that's how in-depth Stone Shard gets. Stone Shard is an open-world pixel art roguelike that follows your unforgiving life as a mercenary fulfilling contracts across a war-torn land. Stone Shard's turn-based combat is absolutely brutal. It does not care if you just logged 20 hours into your current character. Stone Shard will throw a bear at you in an instant who will rip off your head and parade it around as its trophy. This component makes it stay true to its dungeon crawler roguelike ancestors. In older titles such as Rogue and NetHack, you would invest a lot of time into one character with the risk of permadeath lurking around every ASCII sign corner. Now, Stone Shard provides that same experience through a fleshed out world accompanied by beautiful pixel art animations and environmental design. Stone Shard requires you to think like a Grandmaster chess player, thinking multiple moves ahead and making the best use of your equipment and your environment. Even though life as a mercenary during medieval wartime can be quite profitable, other peasants of different trades are struggling, making them a struggle to barter with in order to procure goods and equipment for yourself to take on an even harder contracts and maintain your own livelihood. Once you gain somewhat of a grasp on this game and manage to survive beyond your character's first few levels is when the real fun begins. Stone Shard offers tons of character development in the RPG sense with over 100 abilities and over 200 equipment pieces with no class or level restrictions, allowing you to create your own playstyle and giving you a seemingly infinite amount of playstyles to experiment with between character to character. Alongside Stone Shard is Barony, which gives you that 80s to 90s dungeon crawler roguelike appeal, but from a first-person perspective. The game's developers to this day are still adding updates to Barony. In the past, this has included a lighting overhaul which greatly improved visibility and graphics. For the most part though, these updates serve to keep Barony feeling fresh, no matter if you have been playing it since its release in 2015 or are picking it up for the first time in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2024. Going through the dungeons of Barony, you will be given chances to recruit more characters into your party. Other mechanics include the Halls of Trials, a skill system on par with the Elder Scrolls series, and cursed items. Roguelikes, especially the titles that are more traditional to the genre, can often be a lonely experience, which is great for someone like me who would rather decay away in bed than step out into the light of day and interact with another living soul. But for my extroverted viewers, you'll be happy to know Barony gives you the option to play co-op with the other boys and girls. An interesting mechanic with Barony's multiplayer is that befriended NPCs who join the ranks of your party, who would normally be hostile towards your friend playing as a goat man, will be friendly if one player in your party matches the same race of the NPCs recruited. Which brings us to the races and classes of Barony. Similar to building a D&D character, in that your class and race will give you certain advantages that you then build off of. In Barony's options of race and class, they give you typical fantasy classes to choose from, with some unconventional ones mixed in for a little pop and zang. Stacklands is a card-based civilization game with roguelike elements. It is definitely one of the more out there concepts behind a roguelite, but one that works well. The game starts off with a single villager card and a few cards worth of resources, which will be used to build up your village. Stacklands earns its title by having you stack cards on top of one another in order to craft, send villagers off to work, build structures, and fight off threats to the village. For example, in order to gain more berries or other forms of food, a villager card is stacked on top of a berry bush card, causing the villager to go harvesting, resulting in a berries card. Cards can then be sold for coins, which then in turn allow you to buy card packs to expand the resources at your disposal. Stacklands includes over 300 cards for you to collect, letting you strategize in multiple ways to build up a successful village. Stacklands revolves around the amount of food you can procure for your villagers. If you do not have enough food for your villagers by the end of the day, which Stacklands refers to as a moon, villagers will die. Upon losing all villagers, you will lose the game. Villagers can also be lost due to fending off boars and other wildlife. A run reaches a point where a certain number of villagers is necessary to maintain and expand the village. So, if you lose a lot of villagers all at once due to some poor decisions, it can cost you the game. The mechanic forces you to always keep a sharp mind and close attention to the village as a whole, instead of one aspect at a time. Also, at the end of every day, you have to be under a certain card limit because I guess Stacklands is trying to make a point against commercial capitalism. Probably not, and I'm reading too much into it. If you exceed the card limit though, then you will have to sell cards until you are at that limit. Card limits can be raised through building certain structures. With elements of an idle farmer, Loop Hero quite literally throws our cute little hero into a looped environment that he will automatically walk around, going from encounter to encounter, with the loop changing by placing tiles down earned from your combat encounters. Loop Hero is extremely interesting in that it strips away the components that we usually love about RPGs, like combat and story, to only give us a game where we can only interact with the environment surrounding our hero. But the environment impacts the stats of the hero and the resources that hero collects, giving us some say in how combat will play out for our little friend. Even though stripping you of control from the gameplay that would normally be expected from a fantasy RPG sounds dull, every video I watched reviewing this game called it mesmerizing. Not only are you placing new tiles for the hero's environment, you are also in charge of the hero's resources and infrastructure of the world that the little guy is looping in. You can pause the game at any time to throw your hero a potion during combat, swap gear in between encounters, and add tiles to the current loop. You control when to end each loop, similar to a run of Cult of the Lamb. How far you progress into a run affects how many resources you come back with. You may want to press on through increasing challenges in order to make great headway, but at the cost of losing all of your resources if you were to perish. You use these resources outside of loops to build up and upgrade structures that benefit the hero going from loop to loop. With a few different classes thrown your way to choose from your hero, and the endless amount of strategy involved, Loop Hero can catch its players up in a loop of fun if they aren't careful. For our final game of this tier of the iceberg, we'll be looking at the second game from the creators of FTL Faster Than Light, which is none other than Into the Breach. Into the Breach is like turning an XCOM action game into a top-down puzzle strategy experience that pits you, an army of mechas, against the seemingly unbeatable odds of the oversized alien bugs known as the Vec. Runs of Into the Breach are not only greatly impacted by how you handle each puzzle in a combat encounter, but how you handle which part of the world you wish to ward off the insect threat first. See, the world is divided into islands. You are given the choice of the order in which you will defend these islands. Each island comes with their own sectors, objectives, and difficulty levels. If you go too hard too fast, you will be stopped in your tracks no matter how great your strategy is. So your strategy on and off the battlefield always matters. Combat takes place in an 8x8 grid of death and destruction, but a grid where you get the perfect vantage point of seeing where the Vec are and what their next action will be. Even though you can see what's coming next, it is mostly impossible to completely ward off the Vex attacks, making it a game of survival and trying to get the best possible outcome for the world you wish to save. This forces you to sacrifice your mechs and pilots for the greater good, because much like the real world, regardless of if a disaster can be overcome, there will always be consequences. As you sink more countless hours into the game, crying yourself to sleep every night from your lack of poor life decisions, you will get a grasp from exploring new strategies that will provide you with the tools you need to make ends meet no matter how dire the situation the Vec put before you. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening all the way through and just watching in general. If any of you have seen the 2 previous tiers, you're more than welcome to go check it out if you haven't. But for those that have seen it, please let me know your thoughts on the differences that you see between this video and those 2. If you liked it being scripted and having the visual illustration going along with it. If there are certain aspects of it that you did like versus didn't like, if you want it to not be scripted, whatever that may look like, or you just hate the whole thing, you hate me, whatever you want to say. Also, if you're interested in just looking at this piece of art and some of my other art that I've done, I'm putting my Instagram art account in the description below. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and just be on the lookout in the next 2 to 3 weeks for Tier 4 to be out.